Good morning, everyone. How are you today? So, today we will continue our lesson Red Riding Hood. Yesterday we talked about the theater and the meaning of theater. حكينا theater means المسرح, and we said that the theater needs light, needs actors, needs script, scenery. حكينا شو يعني scenery يا رابع؟ اللي هو for example like trees, houses, اللي هي مناظر طبيعية لازم تكون متواجدة بالمسرح. And we also said that Red Riding Hood it's a traditional story. شو يعني traditional حكينا؟ اللي هي قصة تقليدية اللي هي ذات الرداء الأحمر. Okay, let's listen to the text again. Open your pupils book page 30 and 31. Then we will explain it.
Pupils book, Unit 2, page 30. Reading. Red Riding Hood. Red Riding Hood lived in the forest. Her father was a woodcutter. Every day he cut and chopped wood in the forest. One morning, Red Riding Hood's mother said to her, "Here is a cake and a bottle of fruit juice. Take them to grandmother, but don't talk to anyone on the way." Red Riding Hood put on her red cloak with a hood and set off through the forest. The sun was shining and the birds were singing. The forest was beautiful, and Red Riding Hood soon forgot her mother's words. She put down her basket and picked some pretty blue flowers. Just then, a wolf came along the path. He saw Red Riding Hood, and he stopped beside her. "Good morning, my dear. Where are you going today?" he asked. "Oh, good morning," answered Red Riding Hood politely. "I'm going to my grandmother's house. She lives all alone at the edge of the wood. I am picking these flowers for her." "You are a kind girl," said the wolf in a friendly voice. "Look, there are some lovely yellow flowers over there." "Oh, yes," said Red Riding Hood. "Thank you." The wolf disappeared into the forest, and Red Riding Hood picked an enormous bunch of flowers. At last, she came to her grandmother's house. She knocked on the door and went in. The curtains were closed, and at first she could see nothing. It was too dark. She felt a little scared, but she was a brave girl, and she did not run away. Then she saw Grandmother sitting up in her bed. She was wearing her pretty pink shawl, and she had her big white nightcap on her head. But she looked very strange. Red Riding Hood said, "Oh, Grandmother, you have enormous ears." "I can hear you with these ears," said her grandmother. Red Riding Hood said, "Oh, Grandmother, you have enormous eyes." "I can see you with these eyes," said her grandmother. Red Riding Hood said, "Oh, Grandmother, you have a huge nose." "I can smell you with this nose," said her grandmother, and her big nose twitched a little. Red Riding Hood said worriedly, "Oh, Grandmother, you have lots of big, shiny white teeth." "I can eat you with these big, shiny white teeth," roared her grandmother, and she leapt out of the bed. It was the wolf. "Help!" screamed Red Riding Hood. Suddenly the door opened, and her father stood in the doorway with his sharp, heavy axe. At once the wolf jumped out of the window and ran away. He was not brave at all. A sound came from the cupboard. They opened the door, and there was Grandmother. She was frightened, but safe, and they never saw the wolf again.
Okay, Rabe, yesterday we talked about Red Riding Hood. We said that she lived in the forest. Her father was a woodcutter. حكينا هو كان حطاب. One day her mother told her to take the cake and a bottle of fruit juice and to take them to her grandmother. And she told her, don't talk to anyone on your way. حكت لها ما تحكي مع حد على الطريق. Okay, did Red Riding Hood listen to what her mother? No. When she saw the wolf, he asked her, what are you doing here? She told her that she is picking flowers for her grandmother. And she lives alone at the edge of the wood, right? Okay. The wolf told Red Riding Hood to pick the yellow flowers, and he suddenly disappeared into the forest. واختفى فجأة في الغابة. She went to her grandmother's house and she knocked the door. She saw her grandmother sitting up in her bed. She was wearing her nightcap. كانت شايفتها لابسة الطاقية تبعت النوم تبعتها ونايمة على التخت يامس. But she was strange. وقفنا عند she was strange. Today we will continue our traditional story, Red Riding. Red Riding Hood said, "Oh grandmother, you have enormous ears." "I can hear you with these ears," said her grandmother. Red Riding Hood said, "Oh grandmother, you have enormous eyes." "I can see you with these eyes," said her grandmother. Red Riding Hood said, "Oh grandmother, you have a huge nose." "I can smell you with this nose," said her grandmother, and her big nose twitched a little. Okay, Red Riding Hood said weirdly, "Oh grandmother, you have lots of big shiny white teeth." "I can eat you with these big shiny white teeth," roared her grandmother, and she leapt out of the bed. Okay, now the question is, what was strange about grandmother's eyes and her ears, her nose, her teeth? Okay, شو اللي كان يامس غريب بالgrandmother? Her ears, her eyes, her nose and her teeth was مالهم enormous. كانوا يامس ضخمين. Okay, if you want to describe her teeth إذا بدنا نوصف إحنا أسنان grandmother اللي هي أساس grandmother بس هو الwolf. نحكي describe the teeth نحكي big كبير shiny مضيء and white teeth. Okay, so we have these meanings. We have huge ضخم, twitched اللي هي ارتعشة. هلا بفرجيكم picture عشان نشوف كيف شو يعني ارتعشة يمس. weirdly بقلق, shiny لامع, roared زأرة and leapt اللي هي قفزة. Okay. It was the wolf. "Help!" screamed Red Riding Hood. Suddenly the door opened. Her father stood in the doorway with his sharp, heavy axe. At once, the wolf jumped out of the window and ran away. He was not brave at all. Okay, suddenly فجأة شو صار؟ The door opened. انفتح الباب and her father الwoodcutter اللي هو الحطاب stood وقف in the doorway with his sharp heavy axe. كان ماسك فأسه الثقيل الحاد. And then the wolf jumped out of the window. قفز الذئب من الشباك and he ran away. هرب. Okay, he was not brave at all. ما كان شجاع أبدا. عكس مين يامس؟ عكس Red Riding Hood. She was brave. Okay, a sound came from the cupboard. They opened the door and there was a grandmother. She was frightened but safe, and they never saw the wolf again. Okay, so after that شو عملوا يامس؟ They opened the cupboard, فتحوا الخزانة, and there was grandmother sitting in the clothes. Okay, كانت موجودة بالخزانة. وحكينا إنه الwolf, what did the wolf do? He ran away. هرب. Okay. So, who saved Red Riding Hood's grandmother? Who saved? مين اللي أنقذهم? Yes, the woodcutter who her father. Okay, now we have a new vocabulary. We have the first one, scream, to shout loudly. To shout loudly, scream, scream, يصرخ. Look at the second picture, leap, اللي هي leapt. عندنا مذكورة بالكتاب بالماضي past leapt بس إحنا عنا leap اللي هو to make a large jump اللي هي يقفز to make a large jump. Okay, look at the third picture. Look at her nose. نتفرج هي مثلا على النوز على الأنف. twitch لما حكينا twitch to make a sudden movement with a part of the body اللي هي يعني يهتز أو يرتعش. Okay, look at her nose. The fourth picture frightened feeling fear. And the last picture is sharp can cut through things very easily. نحكي sharp knife يعني سكينة حادة. Okay, sharp حاد. This is the end of our story. Thank you.